All right, given the time, we will get started right away. I want to thank everyone for their flexibility in holding at least a portion of the leadership discussion today. And I know there will be more to say tomorrow, but I'd like to give some thanks to our departing board members, Jim Murray, Tom DePasquale, Mark Bowles, Elizabeth Cranwell, Barbara Latif, and our faculty Representative Tish Jennings. Your contributions and advice and nudging have been invaluable, and we are going to miss all of you. I want to thank you for your counsel and for your service. And Lisa is out of the room, but I do want to welcome her. I'll wait till she's back. So sticking with what has become a tradition, we will talk about a piece of good news that I think it's worth all of you knowing about, a challenge, and then an item for feedback and discussion. The piece of good news relates to faculty recruitment and retention, in this instance in the medical school. It is really important, obviously, if you're going to be a great university, to have great faculty. And we have been able to retain a true superstar in John Lukens and recruit another superstar in Evan Scott, who's a biomedical engineer from Northwestern. Dean Kibbe will talk a little bit about them, and I think you'll be able to hear from them as well. As for the challenge, some of you have probably heard about the delay and difficulties around the FAFSA, which has delayed us in terms of being able to award financial aid. Steve Farmer is going to talk to you a little bit about that, about how it's affected this admission cycle. And then the item for feedback is related to our efforts to create a pan-university initiative around entrepreneurship. And Mike Lennox, who's from the Darden School, many of you know, has been leading that effort, and he's here today to engage all of you in a discussion and get your feedback about how we should be approaching this possibility. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Melina. Thank you, and thank you, John, for being here.
Wonderful. So do we have our virtual connection? Let's make sure we pull him up. Ah, there he is. Wonderful. All right, so I have the distinct honor of presenting two incredible human beings, one sitting to my left, one on the screen virtual. So I'm going to start with, as Jim Ryan said, an example of an amazing recruit and an amazing retention. And so Evan Scott, who is joining us virtually, as you see, he is going to be joining us on August 1st, and he is a professor at Northwestern University in the School of Engineering. Now, we were fortunate enough to recruit him to come join us, as he is going to come and be our director, our new director of Nanostar. And so Nanostar is basically going to be led by him because, and Dr. Scott will tell you a little bit about his research, but Dr. Scott is a nationally and internationally known investigator in the space of developing different drugs through nanotechnology. So with Nanostar, this was truly a collaborative recruitment. While his primary appointment is going to be in the School of Medicine, he also is going to have an appointment in the School of Engineering. And in addition to holding an endowed professorship from David Goodman, the David Goodman Family Professorship, he also, this is truly a university recruit, is going to be one of our Jefferson Scholars as well. So the other person, I'm going to present both before we turn it over to each one of them, who's sitting to my left, is John Lukens, who is also amazing and a nationally and internationally known investigator in his right, really studying the role of the immune system in different neurodegenerative diseases. But I would say what John is incredibly well known for is in particular his role in Alzheimer's disease. And what John is going to be doing is he is going to be our inaugural director for our brand new Harrison Family Center, Translational Research Center for Neurodegenerative and Alzheimer's Disease. Now, what the two have in common is that these two centers, NanoStar, which Evan will be leading, and the Harrison Family Translational Research Center, which John will be leading, are the only two centers and two individuals who for sure are going to be in the Manning Institute. And they have both been given resources to recruit other rock star, amazing individuals. So with that, let me turn it over to Evan first, and then we'll turn it to John, who will briefly each tell you just a little bit about the research, the goal for the center, and really the why we were able to get Evan to come here and why we were able to keep John. Evan, to you. And I might tell you that Evan is in Tokyo, and it is 3:45 or 4 o'clock in the morning now. So we really thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to meet you all. I'm looking forward to speaking to you in person. My apologies again for being away at the moment. But very briefly about my research. So I work in the area of immunoengineering and drug delivery. This combines expertise in areas of biomaterial science, nanomaterial science, and immunology. I essentially develop gene and drug delivery systems for a variety of different areas of application. This includes cancer therapy, glaucoma, infectious disease, vaccines, working cardiovascular disease, and type 1 diabetes, as well as transplant as well. And I currently am the CEO of a startup company that's funded by, partially funded by AbbVie Ventures at the moment. So I'm going to be directing that design. Very briefly, what this will be working on, provide research, translational, and educational services to the UVA community as well as beyond. The area of research is going to be serving as a concierge service to provide consultation on fabrication capabilities for design engineering of nanoparticles and gene theory platforms, as well as have a very different educational initiatives as well. And then, so why UVA? I'm extremely excited to have moved back to the East Coast. I've been at Northwestern for about 11 years. I'm actually originally from the East Coast, so I'm very excited about that opportunity. But very importantly, the Jefferson Foundation Professorship is really, as far as it's called, unmatched in this opportunity's ability to provide funding to me to quickly explore new research ideas and to translate inspired nanotechnologies to drug delivery systems. So I'm really excited about that opportunity, particularly with the Manning Center coming. This is going to be an amazing facility. I've already seen the plans for my lab space and helping construct or design for the design for the construction. And also really quickly, I want to point out that I know Melina and Jennifer West personally. I've known them for many years. They're really incredible deans, and so I'm very much looking forward to working with them. And of course, I'm just getting to know this incredible Jim, who has been really enthusiastic. And I'm just amazed to have the chance to talk to him. As I can't actually talk to the university professor at university president at Northwestern. I met him even one time in the last year. So the last thing I'll mention is that I have 2 young daughters, and I'm super excited about moving to the Charlottesville area. I have family in Virginia. So for all those reasons, I'm just super excited about this opportunity. I really want to thank you all. I look forward to meeting you in person in the future. Thoughts out there?
Excellent. And why don't I now have John make comments, and then we'll open up for questions to each one of them.
Yeah, good afternoon. It's great to be back. I was here a couple years ago. I guess it was at the Boar's Head and with Coco and Ashley. It was a lot easier then in terms of being there and having the students there too, but I'm excited to be here today. So our lab is studying how the immune system contributes to various neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's disease, ALS, traumatic brain injury, multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's disease. And we're really trying to understand how can we harness the immune system to help treat and eliminate these neurodegenerative diseases. Many of these don't have any effective treatments at all, which is one of the reasons why I pivoted to neuroimmunology now 10 years ago when I was hired to UVA. And what we're hoping to do with this center is bring together a collection of innovative, bold thinkers that are interdisciplinary and collaborative to really accelerate some of the major discoveries that are happening at UVA in terms of seeing them implemented in the treatment of patients, and hoping to bring together clinicians, basic scientists, and students to make this happen. And in terms of why UVA, obviously, I got my PhD here. I've now spent 15 years here. I love it here. I have lots of UVA shoes that I couldn't imagine not wearing anymore. Jim knows what I'm talking about. But in truth, I got into research because I really wanted to help find cures for people that were suffering. And this new translational effort that's been made available through the Manning Institute is the best place for me to be able to achieve that. In addition, I just love the UVA students. I've had such great luck recruiting such amazing people that are humble, passionate, hardworking, extremely bright. This is amazing. We're able to recruit some of the best people, young people out there. There's something unique about UVA in that regard. So I'll leave it there.
So I'd love to open up for questions, and I'll just tell you that both of these two individuals are incredibly highly sought after. And I knew that Northwestern was going to throw everything to try to retain Evan. And so the fact that we were able to bring Evan here, and boy, the competition was tough keeping you because everyone wanted you as well. So you guys should know that this really is an amazing, signal for UVA and UVA going forward. And Paul, your institute has been just amazing. So, Paul, do you have questions for them?
So this is fantastic. This is actually what we talked about a long time ago, why we're doing this. This is where the puck is going. So really, what on the nanotechnology and the different polymer technology and vector technology that he's working on is where everybody's looking to bring these giant genes in to cure many of these diseases. And we have some companies that are working on that, but this is so special that it'll be here because it is the next generation of medicine. And the immune technology, the inflammation technology that you heard about this morning, and the things that they're working on as far as having different ways to treat these diseases that we stated was what we wanted to work on, is really incredible. And pharma is looking at all of this. This is like top of the waves for pharma. They are really looking at these technologies for the next best-in-class treatments. So I think this is an incredible thing, and I'm very happy and proud of you guys coming on.
Other questions for either one of them?
I'm not smart enough to ask a question.
One of the other things I just say quickly is the focus on doing an ecosystem here with this kind of technology and bringing pharma and biotech in here to actually round out our vision. With this kind of technology, as you'll see, they'll be partnering with pharma. These kind of technology will be partnering with pharma. Our job is to go out and help with those partnerships, bring them in so they can set up here too, so we can have the ecosystem from beginning to end. And these kind of technologies will be really fantastic for us to be able to attract pharma and biotech into the Charlottesville area.
I would just add our goal is to create a critical mass of incredibly talented researchers. And whenever you bring an incredibly talented researcher in, or two of them, then the next time you recruit, it becomes a little bit easier. And then the next time after that you recruit, it becomes easier. And so I think we're on a journey now. And both of you are evidence of the talent that we expect to be part of the Biotech Institute. And with you at the beginning of it, I can't even imagine what the end is going to look like. So thank you both for choosing to stay and to come here. We're really excited.
I had one quick question. I know we're short on time, but just from a board level, and as someone who, like Bert, doesn't even begin to understand these things on the scientific level, what's the right way to picture in our mind's eye the way, what I'll call sort of the historic medical research effort that we have interacting with the Manning Institute, and just sort of, how will they connect with one another, or maybe even someone in the engineering school? Or I'm just trying to picture in my mind's eye how that would happen sort of on a day in and day out operational basis.
So it takes the whole cascade. You can't translate an idea if the idea isn't developed in the first place. So we have hundreds of fundamental researchers here that look at signaling pathways and very basic cellular mechanisms. But one of those might be a way to now modify human disease. So then it works its way into animal trials and eventually works its way into human trials. So we really have an incredibly strong group of fundamental researchers here. That's really been the strength of UVA over the last several decades. We're now going to combine those researchers with translational researchers, and now we'll have the whole spectrum. John, you might even comment on that, because a lot of your research is fundamental, but you've figured out how to translate it in a way that we might have some new therapies for Alzheimer's soon.
Yeah, so I think the real power is having everybody under one roof. At a lot of other institutions, they're really siloed across campus. And this opportunity of having multiple different disciplines and also clinical, translational, and basic together, I think is going to help accelerate it in terms of, meeting every day and having the infrastructure and who you're around really does matter in terms of moving these forward quickly. So I think just having everybody under one roof is going to be key in terms of accelerating a lot of this.
I think one other thing, recall the movie The Graduate, when Mr. McGuire was talking to Dustin Hoffman's character, I think it was Benjamin, and he said, "Benjamin, what's the future? The future is plastics." And Paul, you've got a great ability to look at the future, because the future is here, and these guys, future is neurosciences, nanotechnology, and we are at, because of your generosity and your all's dedication, we are at the future at the University of Virginia. And as a physician scientist, I understand that. Paul understands it. We thank you all as well.
Melina, John, Evan, thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, Steve Farmer is here to talk to us about a sadder topic, which is all the problems with FAFSA.
President Wright, thank you very much for asking me to talk about challenges related to the new free application for federal student aid, which everyone calls the FAFSA. Rector Hardy, members of the board, thank you for giving us this time. I'm here with Steve Kamada. If you don't know Steve, Steve is our long-serving head of student financial services. He is a remarkable human being. There's no kinder, no more generous, and no more expert colleague at the university than Steve. No offense to the faculty members we just heard from. In Steve's world, Steve is the people you just heard from. And we've been really lucky to have him at UVA. He served UVA honorably for 40 years. And if any of you should have any questions, Steve Kamada is the one who's going to answer them. The challenges with the new FAFSA have really been profound, and we have been lucky, really fortunate to have faced down a number of these challenges through the creativity and the collaboration, the plain hard work of colleagues across grounds, but we are not out of the woods yet, unfortunately. As you all probably know, the new FAFSA was supposed to make things easier for students and their families. In its technology, the old FAFSA was more than old. It was really ancient, and it was long and complicated. Students had to answer, their families had to answer 100 or more questions in order to qualify for financial aid, both from the federal government and from most universities. The questions were complicated. They were hard for families to understand. They were even harder to answer. So in 2015, a bipartisan effort to simplify the form, led by Lamar Alexander, the senator from Tennessee, got off the ground, started making its way through Congress, and the resulting law passed in 2021, 6 years later, required the big changes in the FAFSA be made and implemented no later than January 1st of this year, January 1st of 2024, effective for this coming academic year, the 2024-2025 academic year. You know, we still believe the changes that Senator Alexander envisioned will be good for students and their families. For some families, for example, even now the new form can be completed in about 20 minutes, and that's progress, and it'll get better in time. But we have a long way to go before students and their families and taxpayers and schools like UVA begin reaping the full benefit of this redesign. And in the meantime, to be honest with you, the rollout has really been terrible. For one thing, the statutory deadline January 1st was 3 months later than October 1st, which is the date on which the FAFSA normally becomes available for students and families. And so students and families and schools were already starting way behind where we would have started out in a normal year. For another thing, despite the best efforts of the Department of Education, although they implemented the new form by the deadline, the form as implemented was so buggy that it didn't really work. Students found themselves stuck in waiting rooms. You may have read stories about the ordeals that students and families faced. You may have faced some of them yourself. When students finally got access to the form, they sometimes couldn't submit it. Once they submitted it, if they made an error, they couldn't go back and correct it. And so they were kind of stuck in limbo. And even once these first bugs were cleaned up, and they were cleaned up, many of them, there were other technical problems, and there were repeated miscommunications from the Department of Education, and there were delays in the sample files that we and other schools needed to program and test our own complicated systems and processes. So this has just been one challenge after another. The consequences for students and families nationwide have been really painful. And as you can imagine, they have been especially painful for the students who most need aid and encouragement in finding their way to college. The worst consequence really with the FAFSA so far is that the problem seemed to have knocked many students completely off the path to college. As of May 24th, about 43% of high school seniors nationwide had completed the FAFSA. That's a decline of about 14 percentage points, or about a quarter, compared to last year. No one knows yet whether the missing students will find their way to college this year or any year. That's a big problem for all of us. Virginia has done better than most other states. I think we're 9th or 10th nationwide in the FAFSA completion rate. One reason that we've done better than other states, we think, is that our very own Virginia College Advising Corps, in addition to helping 14,000 graduating seniors across the Commonwealth, about 15% of all the students graduating from Virginia high schools this year, in addition to their detailed advising with students and families where they help students find the right schools, and then they help them get financial aid and scholarships so that they can afford to attend. In addition to that, they have begun offering virtual appointments to any high school senior in Virginia who needs help completing the FAFSA. So that's our Virginia College Advising Corps. This initiative of VCACs will continue through the end of June. There's information on the VCAC website about how to sign up. If you know of Virginians who need help, or if you know of ways to get the word out to Virginians who need help, we will be very grateful to you for helping us spread the word. Now, as for our own students and as for our own community here, as you've heard already today, we were fortunate again this year to have incredible candidates from across the Commonwealth and beyond. We admitted remarkable young people. Fortunately for us, and thanks to the hard work of a lot of people, this is where the story of something really challenging turns into the story of something really good. In fact, it turns into a story of something great. Great persistence and patience on the parts of our students. Great collaboration between technical and financial colleagues on grounds. And great, and Steve is too modest to say this, great and really heroic efforts on the part of colleagues in student financial services. It would be impossible for me to describe in the too long that I'm already taking the really extraordinary steps that these colleagues have taken to keep our students and their families whole and to help other students who've sought their aid find their way. In effect, they have compressed into 6 weeks the work that would normally take them 6 months, and they have done so while the ground under their feet has been shifting again and again and again because of problems with the FAFSA. So what have they done? Their efforts have included expanded print and email and text communications to admitted and current students, as well as their parents and guardians. They've increased individualized support for admitted students during open house events for admitted students on grounds. They have completely re-engineered the complicated processes that package financial aid. All of this work allowed us to start packaging aid faster than most schools, both in the Commonwealth and in fact nationwide. In the end, thanks to their work, we were able to provide preliminary aid packages to all but a few handfuls of newly admitted students by their deadline to accept or decline their offers of admission, which we had extended previously from May 1st to May 15th in order to give students more time. If you'd asked me on April 1st if Steve and his team would have been able to do this, I would have said probably not. Looked really, really bad on April 1st, but thanks to a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of hard work and a lot of great and expert intervention, this is where we landed. There are three statistics that I think tell the story of how well and how hard the colleagues I'm talking about have worked on behalf of our students and their families and the university to meet the challenge of the new FAFSA. So through May 15th, despite all of the challenges that I've been talking about, SFS had packaged aid for 5,713 students, and that's 10% more than last year. Despite the challenges, 10% more. In April and in the first half of May, about 3,000 contacts from students and their loved ones came into student financial services. That was an increase of about 28% compared to the previous year during the same period. Despite this huge spike in volume, SFS responded faster and more thoroughly than last year. They cut the average response time in half. They cut the number of contacts that needed escalation by a third. Despite the increased volume and despite all the other things they were doing, they took better care of people. As a result of what they and other colleagues have done, strong work by colleagues in undergraduate admission, student affairs, the university schools, information technology services. Thanks to all of the work on the part of all these people, our enrollment of talented students from lower income households, despite the FAFSA challenges, is actually going to increase this year compared to last year. You heard earlier today, Bree Gertler talk about the first results of our All Virginia pilot, including the sharp increase in top students applying and enrolling from the most socioeconomically disadvantaged high schools across the Commonwealth. Those results wouldn't have been possible if SFS and ITS and others across grounds hadn't risen to the challenges posed by the new FAFSA. So as I said at the beginning, we're not out of the woods yet. We had half a dozen FAFSA-related issues with our enterprise system last week. We now need to shift our focus to packaging returning students. We have returning students who need aid, thousands of them. The Department of Education needs to fix some other problems before we can finalize aid. And that needs to happen soon because we'll soon need to send out bills, and those bills need to include the final aid that our students will be receiving. And looking ahead to next year, there's no guarantee that the FAFSA will be able to open on October 1st, as it should. So there are challenges ahead, and there's a lot more work ahead. And still, we knew going into the year that this would be a rough year. Our goals were to protect our students and families from whatever damage might be coming their way and to help other students whenever we could. We are really, really grateful to everyone who has helped us achieve those goals. Grateful to you, President Ryan, for your support, Vice President Davis for yours, Provost Balcom, who's not here, has also been extremely supportive of us. And we are most grateful, especially grateful to our students and their families for their persistence and their patience and for their grace under pressure, because as difficult as it has been for us, it has been more difficult for families who are just trying to help their young people take the next best step that they need to take to make the most of their gifts. So with that, we will be happy. Steve actually will be happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Steve.
Is this a state or federal? Where is the, excuse me, where's the hiccup, state or federal?
Thank you for the question, and because that's an easy question, I will take it. This is a federal issue. Yes.
Steve, what you described can be extremely frustrating for any family that's trying to support their child going to college, but it can be just a showstopper for first-generation families. Do you have any indication whether this is disproportionately affected first-time families, first-time students, first-generation students?
Nationwide, for sure. Locally here, I think we're in better shape. And I think we're in better shape because of Steve and his team and because of the College Advising Corps program that we have. And we were in better shape, I think, because we were able to foresee some of the challenges that were coming, get ahead of them a little bit by changing our communications to families. And we also had some things in the pipeline for further engagement for first-generation families and families from lower income households that I think also helped us better communicate with people and keep them on the path that they needed to be on in order to get what they needed from us.
Mr. President,
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
just wanted to make a comment on this. You know, as school board chair in Prince William County, this has been an ongoing disaster for students all year. And I want to commend Steve and his team and Student Financial Aid Office. I'll give you an example of a student in Prince William County, class president of one of our top high schools, low socioeconomic status. Did a special program at Virginia Tech last summer for their engineering program. He's trying to recruit sort of low SES students and first-gen students. And they have an early admissions program where they, after the summer program, they offer him admissions in the fall, but he chose to apply to UVA ED. He was accepted to UVA ED. Binding. Now, when you get binding, the only way to get out of a binding admission is if you financially can't meet the obligation. I think that there's a way to get out of binding admissions. His FAFSA packages weren't completed until, I think we're talking like late April, like literally up to the deadline. Tech called him and gave him their Clark scholarship. So Virginia Tech participates in the Clark program we just all heard about. It's like they give you a computer, they give you everything. He still wanted to go to UVA. UVA completed their package, and he was able to, and the aid package was good enough for him to, you know, he didn't get a Clark here, but he got a Clark there. But versus the Clark at Tech, he got almost the same support, and he chose University of Virginia. And so I want to tell you, I mean, the work that your office has done and the division has done, this has been, Steve is very nice, he tries to control his emotions, but it has been a colossal screw-up nationwide, the FAFSA. It is a disaster. And it does impact real people on a daily basis, but the university has done a great job, and I'll give you an example of, you know, those are some of the students we're really competing for, and we were able to win that competition because of the hard work of these guys. So I really want to commend you all for that work.
Thank you very much. All right, Steve, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. All right, Mike, thanks for being here. Like I said, Mike has been organizing an effort to think about how we create a pan-university entrepreneurship project. We're running a little bit late, but I think we can bump this to about 4. We're trying to see if we can get a little time on the end for the ceremony at the Football Operations Center and Olympic Sports Center. So I think we can go till 4 and then still have an hour for a closed session.
No, we have to be there at 5.
Yeah, we're trying to see if we can be there a little bit later. That's what Margaret is working on. Yeah. Yeah. So you've got till 4.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, first of all, Rector Hardy, President Ryan, thank you so much for this opportunity to share with you where we are, but also to really get feedback from you all about where we might be going. This is, I think, a seminal moment for the university as it relates to entrepreneurship and innovation. My gratitude to President Ryan, Provost Balcom, EVP Davis, Dr. Kent, the leadership really putting this as a priority and making this a time for us to really try to catalyze our entrepreneurial ecosystem here at the university. I'd like to start before I kind of share some of our history and where we're looking to go by just highlighting why is this an important topic for the university. And first I would say this is part of our educational mission. This is partly how we can empower our students and give them agency is by illustrating to them the opportunities through entrepreneurship and innovation that they might have throughout their lives. The second, this is part of our discovery mission. This is how we bring solutions to the world and how we can translate some of the things we had talked about earlier and bring them into commercially viable products, into commercial ventures and the like. This is part of our mission in terms of economic development and our role within the Commonwealth and even beyond, and how we can be a contributor to jobs, contributor to new businesses, and be a catalyst for innovation and growth within the Commonwealth. And last but not least, it's important to our ability to create a vibrant community and driving connections not only between our students, between our faculty, between the community, our alumni base, and beyond. So there's really a lot of opportunities for us here as we think about building out our efforts here. So if we could advance the slide, please, or do I have the ability? Oh, I have the power. One second here, make sure I get the right one. There we go. So this is a little bit of an eye chart, but I just want to highlight that this is not new. We've been on a journey for at least 25 years and really could go back even further. And this is just a selection of some things that have happened over the last couple decades. If we go back to the early 2000s, we had the establishment of Darden's Patent Institute. It was the largest gift in Darden's history at the time. We had the engineering school create the Coulter Translational Research Funds. McIntyre created the Gallant Center around 2008 or so. A real seminal moment, I think, in our evolution was the reimagining of what was the UVA Patent Foundation into the Licensing and Venture Group, LVG as we call it here, putting venturing explicit in part of their operations and mandate. You can see some of the events that we've done for students, some of the seed funds that have been created. I'd also just like to highlight that Charlottesville itself, if you're not aware, is a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem. Back in 2016, we were rated the #4 best place for entrepreneurs. And we were actually rated the #1 city for venture capital growth in the United States. In all candor, though, I will say partly it was because our denominator was very low, but we'll take it. It was a good recognition for the community here. And so we have things coming along. The Manning Institute is a huge opportunity and catalyst for future commercialization and innovation and entrepreneurship. And then once again, the new initiative that President Ryan launched back in September. Over the last 9 months or so, we spent the first part of our time emphasizing kind of listening to the variety of stakeholders that are out in our community, students, faculty, alumni, community members, entrepreneurs, and beyond. We put that work to work in December in a design thinking workshop that we had to try to ideate what are some opportunities for how we can catalyze entrepreneurship and innovation. And then this spring, we've been spending our time with a series of what I call tiger teams, kind of small groups who are going about the business of actually getting some work done. So where we stand today. So conceptually, we're standing up a function here that we're calling UVA Innovates. And the way to think about this is a platform to help coordinate and also cross-promote some of the independent efforts already taken across the grounds here. To be very clear, we're not rolling up everything that is already taking place. We want to catalyze and amplify what already is happening, whether it's the Patent Institute, the Gallant Center, or emerging efforts like the Manning Institute and some efforts that are taking place in the College of Arts and Sciences. But in addition to playing the role of kind of coordinator and catalyst, we also are looking to set up a suite of targeted programs that are at the pan-university level to meet some of the needs that aren't met by these typically school-specific efforts. So over the next couple months here, we are executing a series of what I would call quick wins, having these stood up here by the fall time to meet some of those needs. You'll note that we don't have some clever names yet for these entities. That is one of the things on our to-do list. So please bear with me as we kind of talk about these things conceptually at this point. The first is a student entrepreneur, what I put in quotes here, clubhouse. This would be a physical space, but more importantly, a set of people and programs to provide co-curricular learning opportunities for students. I challenge us to think broadly about the mandate here. It is not just how do you start a business, but it's broader learnings for students to think about how to be entrepreneurial more broadly, how to think about innovation, and also even be some skill development for them, maybe a coding seminar or how to think about digital marketing and the like. We are in the process of renovating a space on Elliewood Avenue. That was the old home of Hack-Seville, if you were familiar with that entity. And we're in the process of hiring a director for that effort. So again, we are looking to get this up and running by the fall. There's a related effort, somewhat separate, but a related effort looking at the curricular side. Ryan Wright out of the McIntyre School is helping catalyze a series of short courses that will be for credit for students that are in essence entrepreneurial essential courses. I should highlight that we do have an entrepreneurship minor at UVA that's available to students across the undergraduate programs. And this would be just another addition to that program. The second thing we are looking to stand up is what we're calling a Founder First Concierge Service. Think about our faculty. There are many, many faculty who have ideas of technologies or solutions that they think might be commercializable. Many of these faculty might not have any experience as an entrepreneur and have questions. Questions like, what's the total addressable market for this potential technology? Where could I even begin to find executive leadership? Because often those faculty might not be the CEO and they need to find others to coordinate and work with there. And you can imagine any number of services to help them envision and potentially launch ventures. This also could be advanced graduate researchers in our labs and the like. It could be advanced undergraduates who are really being successful in getting ventures off the ground. And one could imagine expanding these services to our alumni and our broader community as well. So when you think about what could be happening here, this could be everything from entrepreneurs in residence to incubation programs, and to also build on some of the existing translational research funds that we have in existence. We're working closely with the Licensing and Venture Group and actually have identified a space to maybe house these activities that's over on Preston Avenue, adjacent to where their current offices are. The third, excited to say, has been conditionally approved by the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, of standing up a Charlottesville biotech accelerator that has wet lab space. This is a great example of a public-private partnership involving the Commonwealth of Virginia, Seaville BioHub, a local nonprofit, the University of Virginia, and a number of other donors, private philanthropy and the like. The city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County involved as well. What this will do will meet a very specific need we have in our community for biotech and life sciences ventures that for a variety of reasons need to move beyond the laboratory with that in UVA per se, to be able to continue to receive funds from things like SBIR grants and the like, and then continue to advance their ventures. So I see this incredibly complementary to what we heard from Dean Keeby before about how this work going on in the Manning Institute can be catalyzed and brought out into commercializable ventures for the world there. So again, we already have conditional support for this from the state, and this will hopefully open up here in the next couple months. This, by the way, will be located in the North Fork Research Park of UVA as part of our contribution to this effort. So looking to the future, and these are just three concepts that I wanted to put in front of you and again, seek your insight on. There have been a number of really intriguing discussions about what we might call a UVA Solutions Labs. This was partly out of conversations around the Futures Initiative that Phil Bourne has been leading here. And the idea is to look at thematic incubators around specific topics. And the way I think about this as different than what we've seen before is where the other efforts might be more about organically ventures coming kind of out of the ecosystem here. This would be more about talent attraction. Could we put our stake in the ground in some thematic areas where we think we can be world-class and bring in talent to help address? For example, there's been some very intriguing conversations around a decarbonization solutions lab, looking at clean technology and other technologies to kind of meet our needs there. And if you're not aware, there is an incredible clean tech cluster here in Charlottesville, probably headlined by Apex Energy, if you're familiar with them. So this would be an opportunity to create partnerships with corporations and others to, again, catalyze innovation on these specific thematic areas. There is also work and a discussion about a building on the Emmett corridor. I believe in your packets, actually it was referred to as the Futures Initiative building. So it tells you we are still in the early stages of kind of figuring out what these things would be called. This could be a place that could really serve as that new front door for entrepreneurs. Not only is it a challenge sometimes for those within the UVA bubble to figure out where to go to get support, But there's other opportunities beyond UVA in the broader Charlottesville and even the community beyond there. And it always has resonated with me when you talk to local entrepreneurs about where do you go if you want to engage with UVA? You know, where's the front door? Do I go to the rotunda? Do I go to President Ryan's home? Creating spaces where people feel comfortable coming in and understanding there's opportunities for support, engagement, and connectivity is absolutely critical. So we're in the early stages of kind of envisioning what this building might be, and again, what are the services that could be in it. And some of the things I talked about earlier, we could imagine moving into this building eventually. Last but not least is the idea of Commonwealth partnerships. And this one, I will admit, is one that is the least well formulated at this point in time. But I think it is an aspiration for those involved in the initiative to think beyond just our footprint here in Charlottesville and think how we can be a better partner throughout the Commonwealth as it relates to entrepreneurship and innovation. Whether it's up in Northern Virginia and the efforts that Greg Fairchild is leading up there with UVA Nova, whether it's the 757, Richmond, South Side, Southwest Virginia. Is there a role, and what role would that be for the university to play to support those broader efforts within the Commonwealth? And I would just highlight one of the great opportunities we have is the vast alumni base that we have, not only in the Commonwealth but beyond. And connecting talent with the opportunities here in the Commonwealth, I think is an incredible untapped potential that we can hopefully, by putting some processes and the like in place, begin to tap. So let me pause there and ask first if you have any questions about what we're doing, and again, looking for feedback and insight on any of these opportunities, but in particular the Commonwealth partnerships. I was curious what opportunities you might see for us.
Once we looked at the Innovation Center at Dulles that never did anything. I mean, it was like you did your best not to get on the board. Like,
Yeah.
Or I avoided. By any measure, it failed. What did we learn from that?
Yeah, and I think there's any number of these, both successes and failures. When we look at our peer schools, there are any number of these types of efforts. Some have been successful. Some have, arguably struggled.
Focus on failure. There, that whole thing.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar exactly with what they had done in the Dulles situation.
It's a full building.
Yeah. And I think actually that in of itself, I think is an important point, right? If you build it, they will come. Not necessarily. It's people and programs that really ultimately drive activity. And so while, yes, there are physical manifestations of everything we've talked about here, it's what are the programs and how do they add value? That's what's really important at the end of the day.
Hi, as a professor of education, I'm just wondering where education, K-12 education might fit in here, because it feels like an area where there's a need for a lot of innovation.
Well, if you're not aware, the education school is actually has started a number of ventures, and there's a lot of IP coming out of the education school, especially around assessment. So, when we think about entrepreneurship and innovation, probably a lot of us go maybe to the life sciences or at least to the STEM fields, but the opportunity set is actually far greater. And actually, the Edge School is actually my favorite example of opportunities there.
I'm going to have to find out who these folks are. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I'd like one question there real quick, because have we stopped and looked at the 10-year history of that and said what went wrong and how did we not? I mean, there were smart people involved. There was lots of support involved. There was smart everything, but it literally never moved. And so, do you think we've studied that enough to understand what we could learn from, there's a lot to learn from a failure, and that one had a lot of failures to learn from. And so I'm really concerned if we don't take a look at it, because there were days there were very smart heads of the group. I mean, there was lots of goals. It just never seemed to ever move forward.
Once again, I'm not as familiar with that one, and I will definitely look into that. Another one that was in the DC area that I am more familiar with was 1776, which was an incubator right, a few blocks from the White House there. That one was actually quite vibrant, and then for a variety of reasons, both financial and then COVID, eventually fell apart there. And so
totally different things. That was vibrant because they partied there the whole time. So it was an event facility almost.
Yeah.
The other one was grants and money, and I mean everything that you would think would have worked there didn't. And so as we start this year, I think stopping to learn what 10 years, they closed this facility. I mean, 10 years of failure should teach us something.
Yeah.
Because we have similar missions.
I would definitely look into that one in particular.
May I try and give an oversimplified answer to Tom's question? I really don't think government money can create a great entrepreneur any better than it can create a great artist or a great musician. These are inherent human skills that are not teachable. And for us, I think it's a fool's errand to think that we're going to spend a lot of money and suddenly create entrepreneurs. Stanford has created a lot of entrepreneurs by letting students and faculty watch other students and faculty get rich. And if you look at the history of UVA's patent foundation, we have never, in the history of the university, except for one patent, ever had anything that threw off any significant income back to this university. In the 40 years I've been doing venture capital in this community, this university has never produced anything that produced revenue flow back to the university from intellectual property. And what we need is a culture here of people succeeding financially. We don't have it yet.
I would agree to a point. I think it is absolutely right, and this is not just true of UVA, but across the nation. The number of IP kind of home runs out of universities is pretty limited. And there are great examples historically, like Gatorade out of the University of Florida, of course, Google out of Stanford there. And I don't think that should be our objective function, is raising licensing revenue for the university. I do think in terms of creating a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation, and I will take point with the point that entrepreneurship can't be taught. There is any number of academic research and just historical evidence that you can, of course, help entrepreneurs de-risk their processes. They don't all have to go through the same trial and error learning process that perhaps many of you in this room have gone through. When you think more broadly beyond IP, this university actually has created trillions of dollars of value through our entrepreneur alumni. And in fact, we did an analysis back about 10 years ago. This analysis was actually a follow-up to a colleague of mine, actually a former student of mine at Stanford, Chuck Easley, who had done an analysis of MIT and Stanford. And what you found, not surprisingly, is those two universities have created incredible amounts of value, often incredibly localized, right there in Palo Alto, right there in Kendall Square near MIT. When we did the analysis of UVA, we were worried, I was worried, that would we just be embarrassed by the results? And what surprised us was, while we're not at the level of MIT or Stanford, we actually were in the ballpark. We have created, again, hundreds and hundreds of ventures. You think about companies that you know of, Reddit, Lending Tree, these grew out of the university. There have been $3 billion exits within the city of Charlottesville in the last few years. All of them started by UVA alumni, Apex, SNL, and Willow Tree. All of them have heavy involvement within the local kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem here. So again, I would encourage us and challenge us all to think more, think beyond just licensed IP, but think about the broader ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship we're trying to inspire, and that our alumni and students actually are one of the greatest opportunities and catalysts for us to help do that.
Mike, you're exactly right. We can teach entrepreneurship just the way we can teach art and music, and we can expose people to that. But there is no way to teach somebody to be great in any one of those fields. I mean, John Now, Paul Manning, Bert Ellis, they didn't learn anything in school that gave them the spark to go create new businesses. That came from something special, just like a great musician. So it's not the topic itself. It's just the spark of greatness that is going to inspire others is unlikely to come out of the academy, I don't think.
I'm sorry, Jim. I respect you. I will push back on this strongly. In the same way that anybody who has success, that success has to come somewhere from inside, right? But we would not have education if we did not believe we somehow move the needle, right? That we have demonstrable impact on the way people pursue their careers and their lives. And so I think there is any number of ways we can help that individual, that student, achieve entrepreneurial dreams in ways that they may not have been able to do in the absence of the support and the education that we provide. One of the things, and this is why I like this term agency, is that there are just a lot of students who didn't realize this was something that was available to them. When they're thinking about their jobs and their careers prospects, the idea that they could be a creator and create a business or create in any number of ways is just not something they would normally think was possible to them. So exposing people to the possibility set can be a catalyst for change. And again, the evidence is not that, for example, entrepreneurs are the greatest risk takers. There's a lot of evidence they're not. They're actually great risk managers. And at the end of the day, that is a skill that can be taught. How do we teach our students to understand, yes, there's inherent risk and uncertainty. How do you manage that risk? How do you de-risk an idea and a concept? That can be transformational to a student. And again, encourage more of this entrepreneurial activity. And by the way, I think that also applies to faculty and other members of our community as well. Just even seeing that this is a possible path for you is important, and not necessarily just kind of, born within. Yeah.
Looking at all your charts, and if I was an aspiring entrepreneur, to me, looking at all this, I would assume the front door for me to get some ideas was LVG.
Yeah.
Who runs LVG?
Yeah, so LVG is run by Rich Till, and we are collaborating with him on this addition to their kind of suite of activities. I think the distinct...
If we got a university approach on patents and IP, I mean, I deal with Iowa State and Georgia Tech and Tuskegee, and they all got 3 different approaches to this that are sometimes totally obtuse.
Yeah, and I think that's often a frustration of entrepreneurs is having to deal with IP. I would observe the following, and this was a big maybe aha for me as we were kind of pursuing some of this work. Historically, LVG's role has been one of being literally a fiduciary of the university. They're managing our IP. And as a result, every entrepreneur and every faculty member thinks their idea is the best ever. And so if they don't get exactly the terms that they were hoping for in a negotiation with the university on the IP, they leave frustrated. Now, hopefully that's not, the norm, and that we can be a good service provider in that case. I think what we're talking about here, that's a step change and a really different way of framing. We're saying now you don't necessarily have to have IP to begin the conversation with LVG, right? Right now, many of the discussions begin with discovery, right? Disclosure. Can you disclose an innovation for us? What we're trying to stand up now is to take it around the other way. This is what we call it kind of founder first here. So you have an idea, let's work with you. There are whole fields of study that maybe wouldn't have university claims on IP. Very strong in the life sciences, dare I say, in software, data science and the like, those claims are often weaker. But we should still be trying to catalyze those opportunities through our ecosystem. Again, Reddit, Lending Tree started here, as students here at UVA. UVA didn't have any claim on IP, and nor should they in those cases.
Sorry, it's just a quick thing. We did the Launchpad program here many years ago. I think Mark, $60 million we've had into that over the years, and it's an entrepreneurial program that's led by capital that can go to researchers that can find access to $250,000 or $500,000, and that led to the artificial pancreas being developed here, and that's gone to the market, and there's many other of developing ideas from entrepreneurial scientists that have access to capital. So I think some of this starts with the fundamental of some access to capital, whether it's our Launchpad program or some other program that can drive people that have ideas to find a way to actually make that a material program, because without a catalyst, then what are they're getting advice, but they need some kind of catalyst that can drive them into their entrepreneurial idea. And I think those are the things that we have to promote, at least early. And so it has to start with something like that, and then the advisory and things like that. But I do think that the Launchpad type program will pull entrepreneurs in if it's marketed correctly, because we get 10 times as many applicants that we can fund, and it's screened by some great people at the health system. And so I think that there's a great idea. I think entrepreneurship is great, but we need some way to move these entrepreneurs and why they'd be interested. So that's just my thought on that.
I would highlight that scale matters. And so for a Stanford or an MIT at this point, they have the benefits. At Stanford, you literally roll out of the north of Stanford's campus and you're on Sand Hill Road, the greatest collection of venture capital in the world. We do have, as I mentioned before, the potential of a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Charlottesville. I would never make the pitch that this will be Silicon Valley. That would be foolish of me. But if you're familiar with Boulder, Colorado, that's in the possibility set for our community here. And Boulder is a vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem that has launched numerous businesses and has relationships with the university. That, I think, is a model for us. And the scale problem can only be overcome by continuing to build and inspire that next entrepreneur who creates the next great business, who then inspires the next entrepreneur. Apex, as I mentioned, in town here, specifically Sandy Reski, who was the founder, has now started numerous renewable energy company businesses. And as a result of us having his efforts and then others, we've now seen a cluster of renewable energy companies here in Charlottesville. That is typically how this works. So to be clear, UVA's role in this is not to provide everything that we need, but is to catalyze often at the very beginnings of these processes, inspiring the students, providing them training, providing them understanding of what's possible. For our faculty, helping them get things just literally off the ground. And that is very challenging for some of them. And then how do we get over these various valleys of death that you face in entrepreneurship?
So just a couple of thoughts. Bert, to your question, our LGV office does a wonderful job of patenting. I've received several patents since I've been here. Very efficient. They work incredibly well. It's beyond that where I think we need to grow and invest, and this is part of this effort. Weighing in on the argument there, I'm with Jim Murray. I think that there's a genetic predisposition to being an entrepreneur. And to that end, I think one of the ways that we become more entrepreneurial is to recruit in more individuals that have that genetic, whatever it is. We met two of them just a few minutes ago. I mean, these are people that think in that way. They have that mindset. And the more people that we can bring into our organization that have that mindset, then we're going to create that ecosystem and that culture. And I think the Manning Institute is going to help us do that. Some of the initiatives that you have underway are going to help us. But I think bringing those people into this ecosystem is going to be important.
And I just want to double up on the connectivity piece here. It is incredibly important. One of the great things we've been hearing from the students is there's any number of students, many of them who've started businesses before they even joined here as an undergrad. But they don't know where to find their people, right? How do I find other entrepreneurs? How can I connect? And by the way, they might form the next venture together that's even more impactful than what's been done before. And so something like the Student Clubhouse on Elliowood is as much about bringing those like-minded people together to create those synergies and connections, and again, create new opportunities that will flow out of that.
So, Mike, I'm sorry that we have to stop this. I would invite you, please keep thinking about this. And if you have ideas to share, reach out to Mike or reach out to me. One question in particular that we have gone back and forth on that I'd love your gut reaction to, but again, think about it for a little bit. This whole idea of a UVA solutions lab or a solutions building, we've gone back and forth between not having it focused on a particular theme and just be about entrepreneurship, or at least have a portion of it focused on a particular theme. So we are going to try to attract people who are focused on green tech, for example, or maybe on biotech. The pro of that is you can pick out areas where you think that there will be a great impact. The con is that the whole idea of entrepreneurship is you don't know what's coming next, and so you might not want to restrict it to a particular topic or theme. So if you have thoughts about that as well, I can tell you that one we have gone back and forth on for a few months. But Mike, I want to thank you for leading these efforts, and thanks to all of you for thinking about this.
Yeah, thank you all for your feedback. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the closed session meeting to discuss the annual review of the president. So we bifurcated the full board closed session with 2 hours in total. The first part this afternoon and the second part tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon session is a continuation of today, so we will use the same motion for both days. Dr. Long, will you read the closed session motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Director. I move that the Board of Visitors go into closed session to consult with legal counsel and receive legal advice about specific legal and regulatory matters, including potential and actual litigation, negotiations and legal settlements, and privileged reviews of actions that are the subject of criminal and civil proceedings, or discussion in a public meeting could adversely affect the negotiating and litigating posture of the university, to discuss and consider elections, appointments, promotions, salaries, resignations, and retirements of academic faculty and administrators, and to conduct the annual evaluation of the president.
Sorry.
That's right.
Did you push Jason?
I needed to catch my breath after
We
that.
need her. She
And
can't
to discuss actions by university and to discuss
Okay.
blah, 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 blah. And to discuss actions by university officials to protect the safety and security of persons. Speaking of security, on and around the grounds of the university, the relevant exemptions are section 2.2-3711A, 1, 7, 8, and 19 of the Code of Virginia.
Thank you, Dr. Long.